I think we will go to Ms. Andrews for 5 minutes, please. Ms. Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee members. Friends of Canadian Media is a nonpartisan citizens movement that stands up for Canadian voices in Canadian media. From public broadcasting to news, culture, and online civil discourse, we represent hundreds of thousands of everyday citizens from across the country who want to protect and defend Canada's rich cultural sovereignty and the healthy democracy it sustains. I'd like to start off by acknowledging Parliament's most recent actions. Bill C-11 and C-18 triggered considerable debate, but together these policies represent a necessary and vital impulse to do something, to act rather than to acquiesce, to react to the eroding impact that foreign tech companies are having on our news, our culture, and even our democratic health. When it comes to news crisis, many shrug their shoulders and suggest there is nothing to be done, that the crisis represents the irresistible march of time and technology, that we are powerless to act, and that the public doesn't even care. But that is wrong. Every day, our supporters tell us how much they do care and how deeply concerned they are about the future of the news sector. They feel what's being lost, and they want better, and they're not alone. Recently, polling we commissioned shows that for all the downsizing and derision, Canadians still turn to so-called traditional media to get their news. 73% of adults said they deemed news from television, radio, and newspapers to be trustworthy and reliable. By contrast, social media was trusted by only 30% of Canadians. Sadly, nearly 80% of Canadians felt that it's getting more and more difficult to know what is and what is not true. This last statistic should come as no surprise. With a relentless pace of news layoffs, editorially rigorous and trusted journalism is increasingly being replaced by misinformation and disinformation. Some of it is just sloppy, some of it is ideological, and some of it predatory trolling for profit. Some of it is outright malicious and even dangerous. So here we are, knee-deep in a Canadian news crisis. But perhaps it's time to focus less on the result and more on the cause. Because if we follow the money, it's clear that advertising revenues have fueled this crisis in the news. Au cours de la dernière décennie, les GAFAM comme Meta et Google se sont imposés dans nos...
Over the past decade, companies like Meta and Google have made their way into our daily lives. These platforms are increasingly coveted and have used their global reach and unfettered market advantage to cannibalize advertising revenues. Not only have we allowed them to do this, we've encouraged it. Currently in Canada, advertising purchased on foreign digital platforms is considered a tax-deductible expense. In 2018, when we published our study Closing the Gap, we estimated that $5 billion worth of advertising was being extracted from our economy. We need to fill the gap and encourage advertisers here to choose homegrown platforms. But we can't stop there. Programmatic advertising has spawned a veritable economy of misinformation, in which toxic content is fed by a near constant flow of advertising dollars. This disinformation economy is worth several billion dollars, most of which ends up in the pockets of Google, which systematically ignores its own standards and practices designed to ensure that digital ads are not placed on sites offering extreme content and ideas. We can take action by imposing transparency and accountability requirements that would help redirect advertising dollars to reliable sources of information, away from those whose business models allow them to profit from amplifying violence, hatred, and misinformation. We must also provide CBC Radio-Canada with a sustainable funding model. It is the only broadcaster required by law to produce news in all regions. But unfortunately, it is crumbling under the weight of chronic underfunding, compounded by a freeze in the last federal budget. As private broadcasters continue to withdraw from news production, especially local news, our national public broadcaster must have the resources to fill the void and fulfill its mandate. What's more, a better funded CBC Radio-Canada could reduce its dependence on advertising.
Before we wrap up and address any questions you might have, we want to answer this committee's central question about whether there is a need for a wider study of the Canadian news ecosystem. Our answer is a definite yes. But while that study is taking place, we do encourage Parliament to turn its focus to the advertising economy and its tremendous impact on our news, our culture, and our democracy. Canadians are looking for you to take this task, and we urge you to move swiftly and to take a big swing, because the half measures have brought us here, to a news crisis that may quickly become a democratic one, and that would be unacceptable. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today.